education is the pillar of our society, which develops future generations and prepares them for life and career. And the type of education and content of curriculum are also enormous factors in outcomes for students and society alike. Recently, Nicole Goring, the NDP MLA for Edmonton Castle Downs, put forth a motion regarding the future of education in Alberta. To talk more about the motion is MLA Nicole Goring, who joins me from Edmonton. Nicole, thanks so much for being here today. Great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Jeanette.
Absolutely. Okay, so I know that you have an extensive history of working with youth in various roles at Child and Family Services and as a group home supervisor, and you've seen your share of youth-related situations in schools, I'm sure. So maybe can you explain your motion, what it is, and how you feel that it's important for Albertans?
Absolutely. So when the motion was introduced, it says that be it resolved that the Legislative Assembly recognize the Alberta has acknowledged for having a world-class public education system, oppose any efforts to create a privatized two-tier education system, and oppose the use of vouchers for education similar to those used in the United States.
Okay, so that's it in a nutshell. So you mentioned the two-tiered. So do you feel that there's privatized and two-tiered education in Alberta already?
Well, what we've seen with this government and Danielle Smith was that she was very vocal about introducing an American-style voucher system in Alberta, which ultimately creates an approach to take public dollars away and put it towards tuition to private schools. So fundamentally what this does is that it takes away and erodes resources from the public school system, and ultimately the result is that everybody loses in this system.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how would you foresee this impacting maybe Waldorf or Montessori schools that are already in the province?
So when it comes to funding education, the Alberta NDP has said that we will fund every student, that we're focused on making sure that we're building more schools and ensuring that Alberta young people are taught the world-class curriculum that prepares them for success. We want to work with Albertans to build a modern, inclusive curriculum that will prepare students for higher learning, the world of work, and how to be engaged citizens. We see that public education is world class, especially in Alberta. And when this government introduced their curriculum, we saw damaging impacts. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the Northwest Territories and Nunavut ended a 40-year relationship with Alberta. And they indicated that they will not teach this curriculum that the UCP has introduced.
Okay, so what are the negative impacts of the curriculum that the UCP have introduced? Maybe go into that a little bit.
Absolutely. So there are so many that are coming forward saying that this education is eroding the public education system. Alberta has a world-class system. Like you said, I have tons of experience working with youth. I have 3 kids of my own who went through the public education system. And the Alberta NDP want to make sure that our public education system is funded and that we have the supports required for teachers, for families, for students to make sure that they're successful going forward.
Okay, and as your motion points out, Alberta already ranks high on the world stage, right? So do you think that the existing system needs to be changed to achieve an even higher ranking?
Well, I think that that's a great question. I know that a lot of work has been done towards the curriculum, and that what we're committed to doing is building a modern, inclusive curriculum. And we want teachers at the table. We want to make sure that families are at the table because we need to invest in public education and the future of Alberta's children.
So what do you think that would look like being practiced out?
Being practiced out, it would mean that everybody has a voice when it comes to ensuring that our students have the best education possible. And so looking at what work has been done and how we'll go forward is making sure that we have those voices at the table.
Okay. Do you think that this would impact like other private schools, like religious schools for Christian, Muslims, Jewish, who are already set up in Alberta?
I think that when we're looking at the schools that are already set up, we'll continue to work with them and to have their voice as part of the conversation. I know that there's some great work happening all across the province, and we're not looking to exclude anybody. We want to make sure that we're fully funding students and the teachers that are required to make sure that the education is delivered.
There are a lot of people that are very much for the voucher system that you were speaking of. I know like European nations have had great success with school vouchers, and so does the US. And from research that we've done, the US actually ranks behind European nations with school systems vouchers. But do you think that this is not a good option for Alberta to pursue? Like, why would it be bad, in your opinion?
In November, Alberta Public School Boards voted overwhelmingly against Danielle Smith's American style voucher system, with divisions serving 95.5% of students voting against it. So Albertans are saying very clearly that they do not support this American style voucher system.
Well, that's interesting. Okay, so if schools and students in Europe have had good success with that system, do you think that there's no value for Alberta to maybe research and investigate if it could provide a better outcome for Alberta students?
At this point, I'm not really familiar with the assessment of out of jurisdiction, but I think that when it comes to providing world-class education, that those conversations definitely could happen, and that we're open to making sure that students have the best access to a strong world-class Alberta education as possible.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure with your extensive work with youth and with school counselors, and I believe you created a mediation. Was it a manual between the school counselors and police? So what have you seen in your experience in terms of the school system and student success?
I think the best thing is that we're having those conversations. And so when it comes to a student learning, having those conversations and everybody at the table, the school staff, the support staff within that school, and the caregivers that are providing the supports to the students, and really making sure that they have voice when it comes to a child's education.
Yeah, definitely. So, Nicole, where does your motion sit right now? I know you brought it forth in the last session.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it died on the order paper because we adjourned. It's no longer up for debate.
Are you planning to, I guess, put it forward again or
Well, I
revise
mean,
it?
it would depend on who is government. Should we make government going forward? There isn't a need for it to come forward. We would be focused on making sure that we are investing in public education and the future of Alberta's children with the Alberta NDP.
Do you find that the voucher system, would that cost people more money? Would it, like, what's the big beef with it?
Ultimately, it takes funding away from public education. It funnels it into the private sector, and it ultimately erodes the public education system that we have in Alberta that is incredible.
Thank you, Nicole Goering, for joining us today. So great to have you on.
Thank you.
That was Nicole Goering, MLA for Edmonton Castle Downs, and she joined us from her office in Edmonton.
Last fall, and then again in this final setting of the Alberta legislature, NDP MLA Nicole Goering of Edmonton Castle Downs introduced a motion to oppose any efforts to create a privatized two-tier education system in Alberta. Her motion is designed to even oppose the use of vouchers for education. Now, some parents have their own opinions on this matter, but to share the parental concerns from Alberta, we have Jeff Park, the Executive Director of the Alberta Parents Union, joining us. Jeff Park, welcome back to Bridge City News.
Thank you so much, Michael.
It's great to have you on. Jeff, can you explain why this motion is so concerning to many Alberta parents?
Absolutely. Look, the parents in the Alberta Parents Union have come together, over 16,000 of them from every political stripe, because we have this very fundamental belief that I am the expert on my 4 kids, not some educrat in Edmonton or even with a local school board, but that parents are the ones who are the expert in their own kids. Someone else might know more about a certain kind of pedagogy or a curriculum design or a certain subject, but we're the expert on what our kids need. So that just as nutrition can be a very complicated topic, we still trust families to make their own decisions about which grocery store they shop at and what they buy when they go there. and for a lot of us, it just makes sense that the education system should run the same way. And because precisely because education is so important, we think that having one centralized bureaucracy where they don't particularly suffer if the system fails is
Gotcha.
the wrong way to go. So choice in education raises all boats and makes education better for everyone, and that's why we advocate.
Right. So it makes perfect sense to me that parents know what's best for their children in the full spectrum of their lives. Apart from this, or maybe in addition to this, what do you see, or what's the feedback as to the most felt need of your members?
For a lot of the members, they just feel that their voices aren't being heard, whether that's at the provincial government level, whether it's at the school board level, or whether it's at the school or classroom level. Um, they find that the system has gotten so big and so bureaucratized and so distant from a regular parent that a regular parent has trouble making their voices heard. And a lot of the advocacy groups that are supposed to stand in for parents have compromised that role. So that's why we launched just May 12th of 2022. We're a pretty new organization, but why we've attracted so many parents so quickly is because a lot of parents just struggle to be heard and want us to help, and they do struggle to get reliable information from a lot of the people in the system who have more of a vested interest in what information they allow parents to have.
There's obviously got to be some myths here in Canada that are against the choice in education. Can you share some of those myths with us?
Sure. Well, one is well, two of them, I suppose, are right there in Ms. Gehring's motion. The idea that it's American, that choice in education is American style. We've talked about how that's the absolute opposite of the truth. The idea that it's elite, that you use the word two-tiered, that the elite have access to better schools, and that the money and resources rush away from the public system. That's precisely what happens in a place more like Ontario, where they don't have a system of school choice. You have private schools that run $36,000 in tuition in Ontario. You have nothing like that in Alberta. The government of Alberta did a survey to look at the incomes of people by different school types, and it's pretty even across the board. And in fact, the lowest percentage of the lowest income bracket are public school families. And so we have a broad variety of income and class being served by a broad variety of schools. It's not just for the elites. The other big myth connected to that is the idea that schools of choice can reject students. In the vast majority of cases, that is completely overblown to the point of being entirely false. Of course, for a school that has religious convictions, they want to make sure that families that share those religious convictions are at the front of the line, because you are agreeing that your child will be taught according to those ideas. But charter schools, for instance, they are not allowed to have say cream the top of the crop and only take the best students. They have to have an equitable admission standard, and most of them it's just first come first serve, and that's how it is for so many schools, and that's why so many of these schools have waiting lists that are as long or twice as long as their actual ability to admit students to their school.
Wow. So education, especially even for me growing up, was not a one-size-fits-all. Is there, let's say hypothetically, or in the planning, a certain kind of student that is typical for the public school system?
Sure. So that's one of the reasons this makes so much sense to regular parents. Is all you have to do is have a second kid to realize that kids aren't one size fits all. And so many people then realize that their education also can't be one size fits all. And a lot of the parents who belong to the Alberta Parents Union have do not send all of their kids to the same option. They might home educate one student, have one in an alternative program, and one in Catholic school, and we have lots of parents who have multiple children in multiple systems because they have different needs, and that's why we need to have more flexibility, more choice, more options for families, and trust the families to find the best education for their children, not educrats in Edmonton or even in a local area.
Sure, that makes sense. And I was thinking of that bell curve, so to speak, for where you can slot your children in. What about some of those cracks that students are known to fall through in the public system? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, absolutely, and often I would say one of the most common reasons that parents express to me why their kids are falling through the cracks, I should mention, is not even so much academic or learning skills. It's the bullying. It's that the school that they first place their child in is not safe for their child, or their child at least does not feel safe, and they can't learn in that environment. And a poster on the principal's wall that says that we have zero tolerance for bullying is little comfort in such situations. And I've had parents reach out to me where it's their child that's being expected to make the changes and bear the weight of accommodations, and not the bullies. And that's so often what happens in these big systems. So that's one of them. But there's also just approaches to learning. There's oftentimes even the values where a child finds it very difficult to learn because and the family finds it very difficult because the values of the family and the school, the values that the school is promoting or seeming to promote, don't match. And so for all those reasons, we need to have pluralism, more options, and trust families to make those decisions. They're the ones with the skin in the game. They're the ones, it's their kids. And they're the ones who should be entrusted with these decisions.
Yeah, that certainly gives our viewers a lot to think about, shed some light on those maybe dark recesses of the education system, and just why there's actually that desire from parents to find the right fit for their child. And we do it in every other area, so why not education? But Jeff, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Yeah, it was great to chat with you about this. That was Jeff Park, the Executive Director of Alberta Parents Union. He joined us today from his office in Calgary.